Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. First I want to preface this with an apology to those of you who tuned into the stream shortly before I'm actually uploading this. I was trying to sort out the bug, I still am. There was some sort of static over the top of the audio. When I do recordings, this does not pop up, incidentally, as you can kind of hear here. But when I do streaming, and I try to do this, I try to adjust a whole bunch of settings, try to sort things out. It always gives me this really annoying static crackle, and I'm not entirely sure why. I will continue trying to sort it out. There's a whole bunch of forum threads on similar issues, so I'm going to keep looking and see if I can sort it out. If you guys have any ideas, if you guys have experience with OBS and having these sorts of issues, and you have potential fixes, be sure to let me know. I'd really appreciate it. But at the moment, I'm probably not going to be streaming for. I was hoping to perhaps do a little bit of weekend streaming, but it looks like that's not really going to work out until I can sort out these audio issues, because it really does. It's a pretty jarring static crackle. I'm not sure why. But regardless, hopping into the game here, it is on Waldenhof, and we are playing as the Dwarfs against the Tomb Kings. And for this match, I wanted to try out something a little different. Rather than going for the old standard cannon doom box in the corner, which just kind of snipe away at your opponent, I decided to go with a really wide, or maybe not the most widest, but an infantry heavy build, backed up by a bunch of slayers for the anti-large. And I figured that if my opponent goes super infantry heavy, we will have a few tools to crack them, like these squirrelers. If my opponent does go with, say, a monster heavy build, we will still have the support of these giant slayers to make things work. My opponent here was Brennus. He gave me some great games. You're going to see another one of the matches tomorrow. Some really close, really fun, really entertaining matches. And he had a cool infantry build he'd go in here with the Tomb Kings, which I think is honestly a great way to go against Dawi. But regardless, let's hop in and break down the compositions here. For my Lord, I did bring a Rune Lord. I obviously wanted to have some crowd control available with Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin. Of course, he also does provide Master Rune of Grungni if my opponent went with a whole bunch of, say, Ushapti Great Bows. Plus, you know, against Archer spam with armor debuffs, it works pretty well as well. We also do have the Master Rune of Negation and the Master Rune of Oath and Steel, which helps counteract a lot of armor debuffs. And with an infantry build like the one that, incidentally, Brennus was running here, having that extra armor helps, because those debuffs, they can drop you by like 30, 60, maybe even 90 armor if they're stacked up enough. So Oath and Steel being able to bump that back up to with plus 60 is really, really strong. Alongside him, we do have a Runesmith who just has Rune of Wrath and Ruin, as well as the Rune of Groth One Eye. You might be wondering why. Well, I figured, you know, leadership, it can buckle, especially for miners and these lower end troops. It's good to have a little bit of extra leadership. Rune of Wrath and Ruin, once again, giving us some more crowd control. Our front line is composed mostly of Longbeards. We do have a single unit from Northernland's Ironbreakers anchoring things in the center. Blasting charges, of course, destroy squishy low-end troops, and otherwise they'll be able to trade very effectively with Tomb Guard. I'm not entirely sure if Longbeards win, but they will trade very nicely, especially with a few chevrons in the mix. In the second line, we have a whole bunch of miners with blasting charges. These guys will be able to blow the squishy skeletons to Kingdom Come, and alongside them, 2 Quarrelers to hopefully suppress units like these Skelly Archers. In the very back, 2 Giant Slayers, as well as the Dragon Max Slayers to provide some of that CC. For my opponent, he did decide to go very wide with infantry. He's got a front line composed of skeleton warriors, backed by a bunch of Tomb Guard. The Skellies obviously just there to zone and soak up charges, while the Tomb Guard will win it, hopefully, in the front line fight. A Necrotech providing a slew of different buffs and debuffs. He does have, of course, Restoration. He does also have Elixir of Might, which is an interesting choice. Definitely not a bad buff for Tomb Guard. Will make him a lot more potent. Interestingly enough, no Vambrace of the Sun, not anticipating an infantry-heavy build, which makes sense. So he won't be able to debuff my melee attack. Alongside him, we do have a Lich Priest of Death, another cool choice. He does have Spirit Leech, which not the most useful, but obviously he's mostly brought here for the Soul Blight. Minus 30 armor, minus 25% weapon damage. Really, really potent against Dwarves. He also does have the Curse of Zar, as well as Life Leeching, which is all pretty nice. 2 units of Carrion up in the sky to harass the backline, as well as a Vanguarded Tomb Scorpion looking to sneak up from behind and potentially dumpster my backline. Alongside them, 4 units of Skeleton Archers, as well as the Blessed Legion of Fach. And then in the back here, a Tomb King who does have the Amulet of Fasta. So potentially a lot of armor debuffs. Not quite going the whole hog the way I sometimes do with Tomb Princes in there as well. But still, it's a whole bunch of debuffs and a whole bunch of potential to really hurt me here. Because I only have 2 Quarrelers. Do keep that in mind. So, and plus now I'm being a fool, I'm wasting my ammo here on a bunch of Skelly Warriors. But because I've only got Quarrelers, 2 Quarrelers, he's going to be able to really lay the smackdown on my line here. And especially like if he can focus down the Norgum's Ironbreakers with all those armor debuffs, we could find ourselves in a bit of a pickle. Regardless, we are going to push forward. Norgum's Ironbreakers are immediately going to become the target of all this hatred. You can see the Amulet of Fasta going down, the Armor Sundering, of course, and the Soul Blight. But we are going to counteract it with the Fat Master of Wrath and Ruin. As you can see, I'm actually holding back on wasting my all my abilities here, like Master of Negation, simply buffing the armor back up to 95 and letting them soak some shooting. Unfortunately, I didn't want to get these guys to use their blasting charges on the Tomb Guard, but I don't know why, if this is supposed to be extraction or something, but they're not throwing, so they didn't do this, and they kind of screwed me there. Elsewhere, though, the Miners blasting charges are going to start unloading on the Skelly Warriors, and the Longbeards, they're going to start engaging pretty shortly. You can see the Tomb King kind of running amok. We try to hit him with the Master of Wrath and Ruin. Big mistake on my part, getting a little greedy there, not anticipating my opponent being much more cautious than he was, and he does pull back the Tomb King, which is a good move, prevents me from getting damage on him. Meantime, Norgum's Ironbreakers here getting dumpstered, but they are, of course, they have soaked through most of that damage, and now they're pushing forward. It's still a good half of their HP left. They're going to be able to start doing some serious damage. Unfortunately, they just didn't get any value out of those blasting charges, which really blows, but what can you do? Meantime, the Rune Lord is in the pits, providing support, and the Carrion, who thought they were going to be clever and shut down my Quarrelers, are getting promptly slashed and diced by the Giant Slayers. Obviously, these guys are not large, but Giant Slayers are kind of really strong. They've got 50 melee attack, 43 weapon strength, and Carrion with their low armor and reliance on melee defense, they're not going to hold up too well here. These Carrion being used cautiously. I'm of course not focusing on them with shooting because I'm too busy trying to fire away at the archers. We do take a unit out over there, but that still does leave 4 units firing. But the key here is that we remove the Legion of Demonetization. So with them off the line, we are in a much stronger position. In the meantime, the Tomb Scorpion has managed to meander his way through the front, and he's now running amok alongside the Tomb King. So they're causing me a lot of pain and agony. The Norgum's Ironbreakers hit by another Soul Blight, but you know, the Skelly Warriors and the Tomb Guard getting chopped down slowly but surely. We got all that support. And the Carrion, whenever they try to get a little cheeky here, we are just going to zone them out with the Slayers. We are keeping our Slayers pretty safe, and slowly but surely chipping away at this front line. The Tomb King, of course, is quite a threat, but one of the cool things that is worth mentioning, I think, when you're dealing with these guys is the fact that Tomb Kings and all lords, as far as I'm aware, mounted on monsters do not actually get the construct trait, despite being mounted on a construct. So they can't be healed by necrotects. I'm not sure if my opponent brought the necrotect here with the sole intention of healing the Tomb Scorpion, or if he realized this. I have made this mistake before, personally, so not sure either way, but regardless, the fact that it does not heal your lords can potentially be an issue. That said, my opponent is immediately diving after my poor Rune Lord here, who is mounted on his toilet seat because I was anticipating some magic shenanigans. And because of that, you know, the Tomb Scorpion and the Necrotect are going to do some damage. Obviously not getting a benefit from the bonus versus infantry, or really much from the Elixir of Might, but still able to hit him pretty consistently and do some nasty work. The Ushapti summon on the back line as well here is going to be able to start whittling down these Longbeards, but forcing my opponent not focusing on the Quarrelers, which is a bit of a benefit for me. That said, the Quarrelers able to really overwhelm the Skeleton Archers. We have at this point taken 2 units offline. We are working on a third now. The Dragonback Slayers are actually pouring around the flank, getting in there against these Skeleton Archers, and they will dice them up pretty quickly. That wonderful Dwarven Cav. Meantime, my Giant Slayers running for dear life, trying to escape the pounding fire from the Skeleton Archers. The Amulet of Fasta affecting them. I don't think that was intended for them. I think it was intended for one of these other units, but regardless, they are pretty badly mauled. You can see they have only lost 9 models, but still, these guys are starting to bleed HP. These guys down to 3,800. These guys only 3,200. The Dragonback Slayers taking focused fire, despite the best efforts of our archers. But you can see the Quarrelers, you know, they're holding their own. They've basically dumpstered this unit of Skeleton Archers. These guys are bogged in melee, and they're going to get dumpstered by the Dragonback Slayers. That only leaves 1 unit over there, which is really nice for me. In the meantime, we do drop a Rune of Wrath and Ruin on the Tomb Guard, melting their HP away, really tearing them to shreds. The Norgum's Ironbreakers here buying time. Just look at this. This is ridiculous. These guys, they're like a 1/6 HP. Their leadership stuff 40. And they just don't give a damn. They are just chopping through this Tomb Guard, and they're just not going to give up. They're ridiculous. But in the meantime, over here, the Tomb Scorpion does try to get a little cheeky, so we're going to dive on him with the Giant Slayers. Giant Slayers, of course, will do a lot of damage each swing. They do like 80 damage, I think, or 70 maybe, with AP being most of that. You can see 30 bonus versus large. So they're doing 70. and they've got an 80 melee attack. So basically this Tomb Scorpion, especially when he's getting flanked, has no chance of dodging. So if these guys are able to stay on him, they are going to slash and dash and just crush him really, really handily. But my opponent does have a Necrotech somewhere in there, so he's going to be able to heal. Spear Leech going down, desperately trying to snipe out my Rune Lord, but Spear Leech is not going to do very much. This is one of those things, it's a desperation move, I suppose, because at this point there's basically no armor left on the field, so Soul Blight's not that useful. But Spear Leech against this guy with his 55%, I think, magic resist is really going to do almost nothing. So the Rune Lord's just going to kind of waddle off, not giving a damn. And as the Tomb Scorpion dives in, we are going to be able to pressure him once again pretty heavily with the axes of our Giant Slayers. And Tomb Scorpion, even with the Restore, cannot stay in here. He cannot stay in this fight if he wants to survive. He just has to get the hell out of there. And the Archer's starting to run out of ammo. These guys, Dragonbacks chewing through these Skeleton Archers. Over here, these Skeleton Archers down to 3 rounds. Although my opponent does get some damage in there against the Northern Ironbreakers, not entirely sure what that effect is. Oh, it's the Rune of Wrath and Ruin on the Tomb Guard. But at this point, my opponent is starting to run out of troops, and once we remove all this infantry on the periphery, we are going to then be able to simply cut off and hopefully cut up this Tomb King and the Tomb Scorpion, because we do still have Dragonback Slayers with their slow, which is just so useful. Quarrelers, in the meantime, do destroy those Skeleton Archers. You can see some satchel charges going in on the Skellies, and my opponent basically out of options at this point. He is basically reduced to the Tomb King, ammo-less Skeleton Archers, and we are pushing in. We're pushing in very aggressively, trying to get in on these troops, trying to get in with our Dragonback Slayers. Our Rune Lord, of course, is in the pits there, helping out. We do still have Giant Slayers somewhere as well. You can see one unit over here, very healthy, one unit over here, very unhealthy, but they are still dicing through these Skellies. Of course, they're unbreakable. It's just a huge boon in this fight, because if these guys did break, this would have been, or if these guys were breakable, this could have been a disaster. As my opponent has pressured the Rune Lord very heavily, he has I can't talk, but he has pressured the Tomb Scorpion very heavily. So being able to dice through them is just so useful here. You can see the Tomb Scorpion starting to bleed HP down to 2,300. He gets hit with a second restore, so well played from my opponent there. Brennus doing his best to keep this guy alive, but his Tomb King is stuck in the pits here, taking damage slowly but surely. A bit of a misplay here on my part, perhaps, focusing the Necrotect with my Quarreler Fire. Probably should have just focused on the Tomb King. At this point, he's debilitated, which means his armor's not worth very much. But unfortunately, we are not going to be able to. He was not really able to kind of quite snipe out my Tomb King Rune Lord here. My Rune Lord's running. He pops a Master of Negation. He survived through Spirit Leech, and then now Rune of Wrath and Ruin is going to go down the Tomb King here, preventing him from extracting himself, and really causing him to get kind of beat up. You can see he's bleeding a lot of HP to those Giant Slayers, which is brutal. The curse, unfortunately, does go off on my blob, which a huge misplay on my part there, getting blobbed up like that. And my Quarrelers are now out of ammo, so fight still dead center. We're 7.5 minutes in. Keep that in mind, guys. We are 7.5 minutes into this fight, and it is still dead even. The Longbeards are getting diced up. The Runesmith in the pits. They're fighting this Necrotech. The Tomb Scorpion has now been hit with both restores, so there's no more healing available. The Tomb King here getting slashed, getting these angry Slayers slashing at his heels, but it's just such a grindy pit fight. And you can see here the Lich Priest of Death, just clumping up the sort of last stand of the Tomb Kings here alongside the Skeleton Warrior, trying to get in there. We are collapsing on them with our Slayers. Slayers, of course, will slash through these cheap trash troops as well. My opponent does manage to push through to the Rune Lord. We pop our Master of Wrath of Oath and Steel, trying to keep him alive, but at this point, it is just some dire circumstances. Trying to keep this box going, though. You can see we're able to chop these troops down. If we can remove those Skelly Warriors, those Skelly Boys, things are going to be in a much worse position for my opponent, because his Necrotect and his Lich Priests are not going to hold very long against Slayers, and that is simply going to leave the monsters isolated and screwed, especially against the likes of Giant Slayers. But as long as he's able to keep me bogged down like this, you can see he's using his Necrotect here very effectively to whittle down the units that are a major threat. And this is, at this point, it's a bit of a race against time. My opponent can remove the remaining Giant Slayers. He can end the Slayers, the Dragonback Slayers. He can potentially scrape out a win by cycle charging the Slayers, or the rest of my army. If he can't remove the Slayers, he is going to be in some deep trouble, because the Tomb King and the Tomb Scorpion are not going to be like getting slowed by Dragonbacks and chopped up. Especially the Tomb Scorpion, if he gets hit by the 30+% slow, he's not going to be able to move very far. Unfortunately, their animation does take him through. You gotta hate the Tomb Scorpions, man. Their animations are ridiculous. He dives through, he gets in, but fortunately, he's not able to get on my Rune Lord, or my opponent wasn't quite able to get the Scorpion moving fast enough, so he's able to sneak out. We do hit the Tomb Scorpion here with a Rune of Wrath and Ruin, slowing him down, getting the Dragonbacks on him, but it's not quite enough. he's actually going to be able to extricate himself and get after my runesmith there. So my opponent trying to snipe out my leadership. Brennus doing what's, I think, the right choice there. In the meantime, using his Lich Priest here, trying to beat down the Rune Lord, who we are just trying to swarm the, we swarm the Lich Priest here with Quarrelers. The Dowie here, just 91 kills with these guys. Unfortunately, a huge misplay there on my part, using the ruins, satchel charges on, and friendly firing, but what can you do? Tomb Scorpion over here trying to get on top of my Runesmith, jabbing him to death a little bit there. But we do get some Giant Slayers on top of this guy, and he is going to like life pretty shortly. You can see they're going to get some slashes in there, though unfortunately getting screwed by the animations. One of those really annoying things about Tomb Scorpions is the ridiculous animations. But as we get our Slayers in there on the Tomb Scorpion, he's going to be in a bad spot. He can try to escape, but he doesn't have the speed. And my opponent no longer has infantry to pull through. He no longer has Skelly Boys. And you can see the bounce of power actually swinging out of my favor, because my opponent still has these two very healthy monsters. But it's really not taking into account just how stupidly strong Slayers are in the melee game. And they're going to start dicing this poor Tomb Scorpion up. You can see the guy dropping down to 1200 HP. Rune Lord's charging in. At this point, I'm like, do or die. At this point, it's all about the Slayers anyway. If anything breaks, at this point, if we break, it's going to be our infantry. Who cares? We need the Slayers at this point. That's the main thing. Get rid of these monsters. Let the Slayers win. You can see the Slayers here do dice up the Tomb Scorpion, and suddenly the bounce of power starts swinging back towards the middle. The Tomb King dives in, attacking the Shattered Rune Lord. You can see he's terrified and fleeing. Poor Dowie there. Just running for dear life, and he gets knocked off his toilet seat. But, of course, with a cry of "Do not shame your ancestors," the Slayers are diving in. You can just see that damage racking up. Just look at how fast. In the space of just a few seconds, the Tomb King has dropped from like 1900 HP to just 1200. It shows the ridiculous potency of the Slayers. At this point, there are basically no options. My opponent could try a cycle charge, but his speed, you can see, dropped to 44 by the Dragonbacks. Barely faster than Slayers, and it is going to be GG for the Dowie. So an incredibly close game, just neck and neck, right down to the wire. My opponent's army, Brennus here, playing really well with the Tomb Kings. I honestly love this build. Now, this match, to be quite fair, is probably a bit Dowie favorite to begin with. The sort of build Brennus brought here is really solid, in my opinion. I personally like to bring a lore of a Tomb Prince instead of the Necrotect to get an extra debuff, but an extra armor debuff. But honestly, this sort of build, you can really work against the Dowie, and especially if you don't go with this. My build here was a bit of a troll, a bit of a silly infantry centric build. And it ended up working out. I was kind of expecting that my opponent would bring some Skeleton Archers. We were actually discussing it a bit with Brennus after the battle, and he was saying those Quarrelers were almost a perfect pick to counter my Skeleton Archers, and they were. I kind of expected them. Now, having more Quarrelers would have been nice. I would have been able to whittle them down faster, but then I wouldn't have had the front line to bog down all this skeleton trash trying to swamp me. I would have been stuck throwing Slayers into the fight, and that's really not what you want to be doing as Dwarves. You don't want to be putting Slayers on the line trying to stop Tomb Guard or even Skeleton Warriors. It's just so cost ineffective. But regardless, I do think this is a cool build. I do think it was a fun match to play. Just getting those Slayers in there. Using the Slayers as your main anti-large contingent as Dwarves is just so much fun. It's something a little unique, something a little different. If I was going to do anything differently in this game, I would probably dump the Runesmith, to be honest, and get some more infantry. Getting 2 more Miners with Blasting Charge in there would probably been more valuable than the Runesmith. Simple fact of the matter was, I didn't have many targets for Rune of Wrath and Ruin. Being able to get rid of that front line would have been much more significant than holding out a little longer with the Runesmith. And the Runesmith didn't really do very much. He didn't get much done. He fought a Necrotect, I guess, at one point, I think. But he just didn't deliver. And I really would have been better off, I think, with more trash for this sort of comp. Or hell, maybe just Miners and one more unit of Quarrelers would have been better as well. Because being able to whittle down that backline a little faster would have been better. But regardless, really well played to Brennus. There is still one more match against him that I want to share because these are some really good games, I think, and a lot of fun. Really well played with microing his Lord, keeping him on his feet, preventing me from getting, like, snaring him. A lot of people will overextend with their monstrous units and get a little cheeky, get a little greedy, but he was really cautious about that. And the game just lasted for so long. It really went, it was right down to the wire. Just a little bit more... I guess just getting slightly more damage in on the Slayers with your Archers or something of that nature, and this game would have been over for me. So definitely close game. Definitely hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you found it as exciting and fun as I did. Like I said before, I do apologize for the stream quality. I will be trying to sort out the issues with the crackling and the static in the background. It doesn't happen on recording, which is weird. I don't know why, but I'm gonna try to sort it out. Try to fix it for you guys, and hopefully we can get streaming back up at some point. I would like to do a little more streaming, but I know a lot of you guys enjoy it. Plus, it helps me do requests if you guys really want to see something. But at the moment, it's just really difficult with the static issues. I don't know up with audio. But yeah, if you guys know anything about OBS and want to have recommendations, be sure to let me know down in the comments section. Yeah, I do thank you all for watching. I do hope you guys enjoyed. As usual, leave comments, critiques, all that down below. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.